So, Eric, it's clear that you have struck lightning in a bottle here. You guys have captured something, the zeitgeist, and you're outperforming the big dogs who have every opportunity in the world to do everything to hold you back. One of the things that happens in the very few cases where we see something like what you're doing is that it's very difficult to scale up once you have struck gold. Can you talk us through exactly how you've managed this? Because this usually knocks out that 1% who ever manages to capture this kind of excitement, and yet here you are, you're doing it.
Yeah, and I'm glad this is actually a great channel to talk about that, considering you guys talk about the business stuff and look at things through the business lens. And with us being our own distributor, we're basically two big businesses along with that, because nobody in the comic book industry for the most part does that. Marvel doesn't do that, DC doesn't do that. So we have our own distribution. So our scale up, it wasn't just considering the creative stuff, but we had to like physical like location, and we had to get a new all this within a year, get a new warehouse, getting it, growing the staff, as well as getting the equipment that's going to be in the warehouse, getting the warehouse physically inside of it built out with the office spaces and all that. It was some growing pains for sure, and the fact that we were able to do that within a year, considering we needed to catch up with our demand, is a testament to this team. Obviously with Carol, we got Andrew here, who's been here the entire time. It was tough, man, to see all that demand. And I think that's the part of the business that so many folks don't consider, definitely creatives, because most creatives aren't businessmen and women anyway. So they look at it like, oh, I've created something, there's a demand. But the most difficult part of it is, well, you got to get it out to the customers, and that's what we had to scale up. And that was our most of our challenges were surrounding that. And we did it to the best of our ability. Actually, I'm very proud of this team, and we're still going to continue to grow, because again, we have another. I mean, within a span of not even a year, we have $2 million campaigns. This was going to be another multi-million-dollar campaign by the close of it, and we still have to scale up and catch up to our demand. We don't want to do too much and overcommit. But it's a lot of work, a lot of grit, a lot of grind that goes into it. And me being a businessman, it's actually fun. It's almost like a puzzle, because you're trying to solve little things logistically. So, I'm still having a blast despite the challenges. But this is not anything that I could do by myself. We have a great team here, and I can't emphasize that enough.
You kind of applied your whole self the way most YouTubers apply to their channels. You start off with a foundation, you have your product you're trying to get out there, and you have a team that is your logistics, which is pretty much your foundation. So you guys are working hand in hand, and that tandem is incredible. You guys deserve these success as well as the sleep. Don't forget the sleep, okay?
Yeah, we were working nonstop. I know I was working around the clock until we got to that first weekend with the site being up. But we can actually just take a little bit of a breather to
very long days.
Yeah, it was extremely long days, and it also was easier to deal with. We had most of the team out here physically going into the launch as well. So it worked out. We were able to try to again resolve as many problems as we could, and it was not easy. It was not easy, but that's the part of the business that I think so many people, and to your point, why so many people, despite maybe having that initial demand, fall off the face of the earth, because they can't really handle that, because they're not thinking through that lens. And that also goes with the storytelling aspect as well. I can't look at this company through the lens of the now. When I write Isom 1 and I got to set up a universe, and then I have to look through the lens of 5 years from now, 10 years from now, so I don't write myself in a corner. It's always thinking about the future, thinking about that demand, and not getting yourself in trouble with that sort of stuff. And that's what we see ever so often in entertainment industries, where people are biting off more than they can chew, and because they don't even consider that aspect of it, especially logistics.
So, Eric, I've got one more question, and I know that Valiant wants to hit those box office tallies, so we'll get right to that. But the other question I have is, we're watching as Marvel and DC continue to dive in terms of sales for comic books. It seems like the entire industry is dead, and here you are, and all you do is thrive. What are you doing differently? What is the essence of your success versus the stand-ins, the legends that once held the keys to this entire thing?
Well, it's giving the customers what it is that they want. And that sounds like a no-brainer, right? But in this day and age, it's like, you're speaking a different language there, because a lot of these supposed creatives are trying to create material that they like for an audience that either doesn't exist or they want to be a thing. And for myself, I went into the start of this entire company like, hey, there are issues that plague this industry. There's the content issues. There's the again, the distribution issues. And I sought to, like anybody within a market that's trying to be effective, solve the problem, right? And it wasn't because, let's say, with the decline of comics, it wasn't because there was a lack of demand. Manga showed people that. So the demand was there. It's just that the American comic book companies aren't really giving people what it is that they want. So I sought to correct all of those problems, including the creative and economic issues that plague this industry, with people not getting paid and page rates and all that. Like, you'll never hear anybody from the RippaVerse that works with the company that is missing out on payments and stuff like that. This is why we're able to get the talent it is that we have in such a short period of time. So a lot of it, though, is it goes as far as the customers determine. And so you have to give it something it is that they want. And we were very transparent about that process with our code of ethics, for example, and us going through the fact that this is a standard that you as customers can hold us to. And I think a lot of people appreciate it. And now we can have the biggest and brightest ideas, but we had to deliver with the first book and setting up this universe for sure. And, I take my content and what it is that I create very seriously, and I'm glad that people thoroughly enjoyed it. So, but it isn't a rocket science. You just got to give people what it is that they want, and they will reward you by, of course, trading that dollar for that comic book or that form of merchandise and all that. And that's what a lot of these creatives that work for the mega corporations, they just completely lost sight of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we see that reflected routinely, not just in comic sales, but like the box office stuff we're about to talk about as well. Just constantly declining returns on these things, and then somebody like you comes along and brings up something different, and they can't figure out what hit them. I want to play this trailer. Mike has this queued up. This is for Isom 2, folks. We're going to watch this, and we're going to grab some of your very generous super chats and member chats here in just a moment. Mike, let her rip.
Fascinating thing. We often like to think of it as something that just is. But too many people let the past determine who they are. When true greatness is determined by how one deals with the present. So if I'm helping you, I have one condition.
Yeah. No more quitting.
Time is a gift, Isom. What are you gonna do with yours?
Very cool. You probably spent more than $5 on that.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm not even gonna throw the number out there, the amount of money that I spent on.
It looks good.
How many reshoots?
I'll tell you what, I could.
Was Victoria Alonso in charge of post?
No, we could tell that wasn't the
It
case.
didn't cost $200 million, that's for sure. To get it. If I had that, I could have came up with so much stuff. But yeah, it was a process. I wrote the entire thing. Shout out to Brazil Animation. They helped with the obviously actual animation stuff and putting everything together. Wrote the script. I voiced Isom. That was just a fun thing to do. And it was really a market filler, right? It's like, how interested are people in something like that? So the fact that we've got the reception that we've gotten, the response that we've got, it shows that it's something that we absolutely have to entertain going into the future. So we're already scouting and kind of, let's say, exploring our options for more animation within the company and RippaVerse Studios.
How much more difficult is animation versus what you've been doing?
Well, I guess as far as the actual creation, there's the financial aspect of it that, but to be fair, I sunk a lot of money into just creating a RippaVerse as well. So the thing about that we're going to have to figure out is if we entertain that in a more longer form, is the monetization aspect of it all, getting creative with that, because obviously as it stands right now, it's more so just a trailer to get people enthusiastic about the actual book. But you know, writing it is also a little different as well. When you work with other artists, they're always going to have their kind of adaptations of your work or what it is that you want them to do. But you know, when you're talking about animation, everything has to fit within a budget. It has to fit within a pocket of time. So certain things have to get added and removed, and that was quite the challenge to try to get the point across, because we wanted to kind of recap some of the concepts of what happened in Isom 1 as a book, while also giving people a glimpse into the future. Like that conversation that happens between Cedric and Avery, aka Isom, isn't a random thing. That's stuff that happens in the book. So we wanted to kill kind of, you know, two birds with one stone, and I think we pulled it off great within the amount of money that I was willing to spend. But it still was a lot of money, that's for sure.
Eric, how do you plan to prevent what happened to mainstream comics from happening to the RippaVerse? And what's your favorite part of the creative process?
Well, the creative owns the company. That's the difference between what happened there. So, you know, I'm going to always facilitate this, and I will. There's not a amount of money that someone could give me to try to like buy off the rights or anything. I mean, Disney could hit me up and say we got $500 million, and I'll tell them to go screw themselves. This is something that I want to see through, whether it succeeds or fails. So vetting is obviously important, so you don't like get it infiltrated, but just how the business is structured in itself, and me being like the main creative and the brains behind the operation, but also being the sole owner of the actual company. That's it. As far as the what's my favorite part of the creative process is the world building, and I think Chuck Dixon would agree with me on that, as he helps kind of build the world as well. So it's you know, we're starting from scratch. This is an entire massive universe that we plan to build. So, you know, whether it be like a tech company or a fast food chain, and you're creating all these things that are part of the actual universe. And that's a very fun process. And we all like, as creatives, we have that conversation. Before Yaira got wrote, you know, me and the Saska sisters sat down and we went through everything. My universe Bible entry, like, who is this character? What, like, it wasn't random. The same thing can be said for Chuck and what he's done with Alpha Core, as far as who they actually are and the individual members of the team. So, you know, that part is fun. And because we care so much about continuity and care so much about consistency in our universe, I think it's just going to make for a very immersive experience for everybody that's going to be kind of invested in the actual universe. So,
can I ask a quick addition to that? And would rule number 1 be stay away from the multiverse? Don't even.
Oh, that's one of our code of ethics, is that there's no timeline nonsense, no multiverse, no time travel, none of that stuff will exist. It'll be the same thing. We'll have to live with the consequences of what it is that we ended up writing. And yeah, you can bet. And we do that. A lot of that is because we want there to be a lot of consistency, no matter when someone jumps in as a reader. So, you know, if you want to get in, it's 5 years down the line, we've put out all these books, it's not going to be so confusing, and it's not 17 versions of the same character rolling around. What's canon, what's not? You'll never have to answer that question or ask that question with the RippaVerse, because every single book that you buy is canon, and we're not just going to wipe those events away from doing multiverse stuff or time travel.